I think everyone deserves to be treated the same. I remember in our New York shop, one of our accounts was a company called Metal Container, and Metal Container was owned by Anheuser-Busch, and Metal Container was the company that made the aluminum cans for Budweiser, and I probably delivered there once a week, and I got a call from Metal Container saying, "Hey Dave, we need an order this week. It's got to be special because the big bosses are coming in from St. Louis." And I, without being a jerk, I kind of said to her, "Georgia, I don't know how to explain this to you, but if you told me that it was for 5 janitors, I would try to make it just as good. I don't know how to do it 2 different ways. If it leaves our business, it has to hit our level of where we're happy with it. And I appreciate you warning me about the big bosses from St. Louis, but I'm not going to do anything different than I would if you had your janitor meeting." Right. P.S. The next week she called me and thanked me because the guys from St. Louis who were on a national tour said it was the best lunch they had on their whole tour. So, you have to treat everyone the same. I don't know how to distinguish between customers or, I spend this much here. I don't look at customers that way. If you buy a bagel, you're a customer.
Everybody deserves dignity.
Yes, and respect and in my eyes, some friendliness, if we can include some friendliness in the equation.
100%. This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, owner of Big Dave's Bagels and Deli, Dave Hausman. My man, Dave, are you feeling unstoppable today?
Feeling beyond unstoppable.
Yes,
today.
my man.
Yes.
Psyched to have you here. I've been getting close with the boys over at Dead Proof Pizza, and Dante actually mentioned you got to go talk to Dave up in North Conway. He's doing some cool things. I get here, this place has been popping. You're already almost sold out. I hope I can get a bagel before we wrap up this interview. But I can't wait to dive into who you are, how you got to where you are today. Let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling before we get started. What do you have for us?
Well, I have so many quotes, I think my staff are sick of mine, but I'd start with our mission statement, which hasn't changed since 1989, and that is to provide the most consistently excellent breakfast, lunch, and catering experience in now the Mount Washington Valley, formerly Orange County, New York. But the mission statement is a 1-sentence mission statement because I believe in living it, not just writing it.
And creating the best experience. What does that mean?
And consistently excellent.
You
know, to me, that's the 2 most important words there. I think one of the challenges of this type of industry is doing it customer to customer to customer, and I always refer it, it's like a Broadway play. You could go to see Cats on Broadway. It's been on there for 30 years, gotten great reviews, but if the people fall down on the stage the night you bought your tickets, you don't really care about the prior 30 years.
Right.
You're seeing a bad performance. So for us, it's embracing that challenge to take on every customer as an opportunity and to maximize those opportunities.
How do you keep that mission statement top of mind, focus all the time? 50 years doing this, how do you not lose sight of that mission to serve excellence all the time?
Well, first of all, you have to understand the importance of it. I don't think there's anything more disappointing than when you take a friend to a place that you love, tell them all about it, and you show up and they underperform. It's always this, well, that's not the way it usually is here. For me, we have a lot of referrals, and a lot of people come in because they were told to come here. So the last thing I want to do is disappoint someone that's been directed towards our business. And to keep that level of energy up is a challenge. Have
you found that the energy has dipped in the past, and what did you do to bring it back?
Well, for me, I believe the secret of our success is my role in this business is I call myself a customer advocate. So I try to look at our business through the customer perspective at all times. And what I mean by that is it's very natural when you work in a business or own a business to just start seeing it from the position that you stand in. Too many owners see it from an owner perspective. Too many kitchen managers see it from their needs and wants and troubles. But I think the key to our success since 1989 has been taking a step to the other side of the counter and trying to view our business the same way the customer sees it. And If you can try to do that every day, it will keep you on your toes. It's going to keep you looking at things critically.
How do you have that conversation though with your staff? Like, you have to see it the way that the customer sees it. Like, how do you teach that?
They're probably sick of hearing it. I mean, I say it over again. In New York, our employees had to memorize that mission statement before their first paycheck. We've gotten, and some of them can still quote it 30 years later today. They'll call me up on the phone and run it by me just to show me that it's never left them. Yeah, I think you have to, it's in their interest. It's in our staff's interest to buy into this for a lot of reasons. It translates into more sales and more customers, which translates to more compensation for our staff. So for me, the key has always been to tell our staff that I don't put money in the register. You know, never do you see me putting money in our cash register. It's always coming from our customers. So they need to connect their paycheck to that customer.
Yeah.
And a good owner or a good manager will make that connection on a regular basis, because it has to be made. To think that one goes without the other is just foolish.
Yeah, and I think the key, and you said it, I think the key to doing this is literally saying it to your employees get sick of it. Saying, like, making them memorize it before they can take their paycheck home. Like, things like, we don't write mission statements down to be forgotten. We write them down to keep us on track. And the only way you can keep people on track is that if you, like, literally bake it into your day-to-day culture. Culture is what you do every day. It's not what you say you do every day. And you have to echo these things constantly. You have to, is there a ritual or a way that you make sure these things get echoed constantly? How do you make sure you bake that into the day-to-day life?
Well, you know, it's easy to explain it to people. You know, to tell people to do something without giving them the why never makes sense to me.
Right.
To say to be nice to a customer without explaining why you should be nice to a customer doesn't make sense to me. So when you understand the why you're being nice to a customer, it makes it pretty easy for our staff to buy in. And you know, they're going to work for the easiest boss in the world if they're friendly to every customer we have.
Yeah.
If they fail in that area, I can be a little bit of a challenge for an employer, and probably don't want to stay here very long. So there's not a lot of middle ground with me, to be honest.
Well,
I know why we wake up every day. I mean, we're here every day to please people.
Yeah.
And anytime you lose sight of that, you're going to be off the rail.
And when you're crystal clear about what the mission is and what the expectation is and what the standards are, people fire themselves. You know, you say, like, this is what we're doing. If you're not doing this, then you're not good at fit. So, like, you know, like, people, like, if they will weed themselves out if they can't rise to the standard.
Yeah, I mean, I've been viewed favorably by employees who love this concept, and employees who challenge this concept don't get along. So there's not a lot of middle ground here. I think you have to come to work every day understanding that we work for our customers' business. We're in a small town here that gets invaded with tourists, but our year-round population is not large. And last count, there's almost 100 food and restaurant businesses in this valley that when the tourists leave, which is going on right now,
the last leaves have fallen.
Correct. You know, now you have to stand up, and it separates the real good operators from the ones who are just enjoying the influx of tourists.
Right.
We need to earn our local clientele's trust every day we're here.
I love that.
And that will never end. I mean, my philosophies, if I sound strong, it's because I've believed in these for a long time. I've always said we're the store that says please and thank you.
I love that, man.
You know.
All right, so take me to where. Well, first, before we go there, where are you today? What's your business consist of today? I know you do catering. You have your brick and mortar location. Paint the big picture of what Big Dave's is today.
Well, Big Dave starts as a 7-day-a-week bagel shop and deli. I mean, that has always been in our DNA. We've been a 7-day-a-week business since we began way back when, and we serve mostly local folks. We're on the end of town near the schools, near Walmarts, near regular day-to-day activities. So we rely on the average working folks in our valley to come in every day and support us, and we have to earn that. In addition, catering is a part of our company that we've never promoted. It's always grown word of mouth. My wife won't let me do hot food catering anymore. We used to do weddings and stuff like that in New York, but up in New Hampshire we do a lot of platter work, pastries, deli work, desserts, cookies, brownies. We're like the before and after wedding place. We'll do bridal rehearsals and stuff like that.
What split of your total revenue is from the restaurant and catering? Was it like
catering's probably in between 15 and 20% of our total sales.
During your peak season, what's a good month?
Our busiest 2 months of the year are July and August.
What kind of volume are you doing?
In our total?
How much square feet do you have here? And how many?
We'll do a couple 100,000 both of those months.
That's awesome.
I mean, and then we're only, you see how small the shop we are.
500 square feet down here?
It's 2,000 total, but most of it in the front is only about 600 square feet. So
it's a lot of grab and go.
We only have a 5-foot grill. Well, yes and no. I mean, we don't pre-make anything. So when you say grab and go, our version of grab and go is we need to hear it first and then make it and go. But yes. And when I differentiate or distinguish that, it's because a lot of places will pre-make egg sandwiches and pre-make subs and, wrap them in 4 o'clock in the morning and stack them high. And, that to me is grab and go. I come from Jersey, where we don't eat it at gas stations. It's the only state in the country where you have to let someone pump your gas.
Right. You got a few people working back here, too. How many people do you have on staff on a normal day?
Yeah, we'll probably roll with a total of about 8 to 10 during the week, and that'll bump up to maybe 12 or 14 on the weekends. We've always used younger employees from schools to supplement our full-time staff. It's been a rich tradition of ours since the beginning. We've hired over 2,000 high school employees. Wow. Yeah,
that's one of the big reasons why I believe in why the Restaurant Unstoppable mission statement is to change the world through inspiring and empowering the restaurant industry. Because if I can make an example of people like you and what you do to lift up your community and to empower the next generation of professionals, these high school kids, like we have so much influence and ability over these malleable people to form and to bring them into the workplace and to make them better people. I think there's so much power there.
I spend a lot of time with youth, both in our business and outside. So one of my pet peeves is, I'm going to be 64 in a few weeks, and people my age like to badmouth younger folks, which really drives me because I quickly turn my head and look at them and said, who taught them, And
right, they're a product of the world they came up in.
Yes, as I was at 18,
right.
So I feel it's our obligation. It's not just a desire. I think it's an obligation for us to
100%. It takes a village.
Yeah, to pass on things like work ethic, which, frankly, we've spent too many generations trying to make things easier. So easier doesn't translate into better in my eyes. And I could sell every product that we make here buying it off of a food service truck. Instead, we choose to make everything from scratch, and there's a reason for that.
I 100% support that sentiment, and it's one thing I've learned is, I think that we as consumers, business owners, are being told that that what you want is convenience and value, less for more. You're tired, you work too much, you need more time off. And there's probably some truth to that in the restaurant industry. Maybe we don't need to work 80-hour weeks, but the truth is when you do hard work, that's the thing that makes you feel happy. When you feel accomplished, when you're doing things, like that's the thing that actually makes you feel like you have purpose. And to take that away, to streamline everything, that's like everyone's depressed now. Like no wonder.
It's I've seen the whole wide world of food and beverages. I mean, I'll tell you things soon that you had no idea about me, but
we'll get into it.
Well, I wrote Thomas Keller's first wine list.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you wouldn't think a bagel guy in North Conway would know Thomas Keller, and we're no longer friendly, but 1986, I was in New York City as a fine wine salesman, and I got to see who's now the number one chef in maybe the world operate. And it was before cell phones. I used to hang out at his bar every day doing my office work, and Tom would just start sending plates of food out to me. So I've seen the highest level of food service, both in quality of food and service. And in my eyes, the same principles apply to our bagel shop. People come in with expectations, and you want to exceed those expectations. And just to meet expectations isn't enough anymore. In a world that's highly competitive, you need to have people come into your business and leave saying, "Wow, that was even better than I was expecting."
Yeah, we got a lot of career to cover, So why don't you take us back to where it makes sense? Where did you choose this path, or when did you choose this path?
Yeah, I don't know if I chose it or the path found me. I got to take you to the beginning because
bring me there.
This December will mark my 50th anniversary of my first day in a bagel shop. I started with a king of New York, New Jersey bagels named Arthur Goldberg. His sons Mark and Howie owns many when shops today. I consider myself a relative of the Goldbergs, as I'm in that family. But when Arthur started, or when I started in '74, there was very little automated equipment. You were dealing with the bagel roller union in New York that could shut your business down. Artie was Artie was well connected, is how I'll put it, and you had to kind of go through Artie to get bagel equipment back then. And him and his brothers really are the kings of that area. And I just started. A friend of the family played cards with him, and gave him my working papers at a card game. And
so you're 14 years old.
I was 14 when I started, yeah, and I loved it. My very first day, I tell this story because I remember it. And it's funny because now I hire 14-year-olds, so I'm probably the most empathetic person for a 14-year-old to work for. But when I started my very first day, I worked for these two older deli men, and they told me to go around the store and clean everything from my waist down. And they gave me a bucket of soapy water and a scrubby. And being 14 and so excited to be at my first job, I never questioned it. I just went to the back corner, got on my knees, and I started scrubbing that store from my waist down, and probably covered about 800 feet of it. And if they were joking when they started, by the time I was done, I had earned their respect. And these guys were like, "Well, this kid's good. He stays. He'll do anything we ask him to do." And I did. And I had a great career in high school working for them. And went through some personal issues when I went off to college, and struggled, and ended up dropping out after a year and a half at Rutgers. And
were you working in restaurants during this time as well?
No, I was pretty much not working. I was working at a warehouse in the summer, but not during the school year. I wasn't doing much. But then I bombed out of college, and I was kind of low, and I was trying to find out who I was again. I ended up working in a warehouse that one of the accounts was Chateau and Estates, which is Seagram's fine wine division. And that was my account. And I started looking at boxes that were from the 1800s.
Wow.
And I got curious, like, what the heck's in this box from 1890 that says Lafitte Rothschild on the side? And so wine became like something I got interested in, and I burnt out at warehousing, and I went in an entry-level job. I was a wine buyer at a wine shop in Greenwich Village.
So you're in your early 20s at this point.
Yeah.
This is a tough time for a lot of young people. I know personally it was for me. You don't know who you are. The male frontal lobe doesn't finish rounding off until like their late 20s, and like that's where you really get that sense of self-identity and purpose. And I'm like, what am I good at? Like, you don't even know what you're good at that point in your life.
Well, I was a weird case because I was highly gifted. I was class president with great grades, and I was recruited by West Point. I had a lot of opportunities at 18 years old, but I wasn't right in the head.
What was your struggle?
My parents were fighting, splitting up. I didn't handle it well. Yeah. It was mostly home.
Got it.
I turned to drugs and alcohol, which a lot of young people will do when they're having problems.
Right.
And
it's an escape.
That doesn't go well with college studies.
No.
So I didn't last long there. And I actually got involved in the music industry in New York. I was doing security back then and working a bunch of concerts.
Good way to get your supply.
Yeah, I worked 13 Ramones concerts back then as security, and while I was working in the warehouse during the week. So it was my two jobs then was security and music and warehousing during the week.
What was your tipping point? What made you choose a new path?
I burnt out at the warehouse. I was running a Teamster union where guys weren't working. They would just sit there. I had a guy that sat on the toilet fully dressed reading the newspaper and told me to F off when I asked him to get to work. So, when you're 21, 22 and you don't understand that very well,
Right.
it was stressful. And so I kind of just had to get out of there and decided I found I quit that job literally weeks before my wedding day with my wife, and didn't want to I didn't want to be married and be unemployed. So I took an entry-level job in this wine shop in the city and ended up, he sent me to 10 courses on wine. It became my passion.
So is this like 84 now at this point? Like maybe 10 years?
Yeah, I got married in 84. I started in the wine shop in about 83.
Okay.
Yeah, 84.
Was it a passion or was it just an interest at this point in your life?
It was an interest that became a passion.
Okay.
And I just got it. Wine was such a huge, I'm a blue collar kid. I had never been to fancy restaurants. And, my first, I worked in a wine shop for 3.5 years as the wine buyer. I got exposed to all sorts of cool people and great experience. At my peak, I was probably tasting 150 wines a week.
Wow.
I was
literally an endless, you will never be able to taste all the wine.
What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master on restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
Well, I was going to study to be an MW. I was going to be a master of wine. I wanted to take the class.
Yeah.
And I was hanging out with a couple of hot shots, including the sommelier at Montrachet in New York, who was good stuff. And, so I used to bring him bottles in brown bags every week to test him out, and people would test me out. But in the middle of all that, one of the importers approached me at my shop, and I became a salesman for Frederick Wildman and Sons for 3 years. And that's how I met Tom Keller and Drew Nieporent from Montrachet and Daniel.
I had Drew on the show.
Danny Meyer from Union Square.
Oh, wow.
You had Drew, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Drew's a cool guy.
Yeah.
He lives quite the life. I mean, he's an amazing.
He's got business partners that are Hollywood stars,
Yeah, I mean, I was out of it right before he opened Tribeca Grill with De Niro. But one of my funny stories is I used to do staff training at Raquel, which was Tom Keller's restaurant. It's the one no one's heard of. I had the charm of being with Thomas when he failed.
Not a lot of people realize that. They think that he was this untouchable, savant restaurateur, but people don't know that his first go-around wasn't.
Well, I'd say it wasn't successful maybe financially, but man, it was a great restaurant, and the food was awesome. And, his abilities were already quite evident. I mean,
right.
Every other restaurateur, like Alfred Portal from Gotham Bar and Grill, I brought him to Tom for lunch. Drew and his chef came to, Daniel came there for lunch. Everybody wanted to see what Tom was doing.
It's one of the reasons why I stopped chasing James Beard Awards and Michelin stars, because to your point, you could be a savant chef, but if you don't know how to manage that P&L, if you don't know how to be a good business person, then you're not going to make it. You could be the most talented person, but you need to be a fiscally responsible operator. And James Beard doesn't care about that. They want to see a flash in the pan. Who's doing the sexy shit right now?
Well, Tom was sexy, and he was doing some great work, but it was a weird location, and it didn't make it. And he ended up leaving and going to California. I think he went to a restaurant called Checkers in L.A. for a little while, and then he eventually went up and opened French Laundry. But I had an opportunity to have my eyes open to the highest levels of service, and in a weird way, I try to bring that to our bagel shop every day. I mean, my standards are no different here than Tom's are at the French Laundry. And, we're just serving a different level of food maybe, and a different type of clientele and a more casual atmosphere. But why shouldn't we have our same standards?
Yeah,
here?
I don't think. Sorry, why shouldn't we have our same standards? Finish that chain of thought.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen what those guys do and why they're successful. They wow people. They wow people. That's what the world is. People want to be impressed, or else they'll eat at home. I mean, I'll cook breakfast myself at home. I mean, when I go out and I don't get a great meal, I'm like, I could have just cooked dinner tonight.
I think another reason why I started, I will still talk to Thomas Keller and somebody of the upper echelons of the French Laundry. Like they're still absolutely on the radar of people that I'd love to learn from. But at the same time, I feel like they exist to serve the top 1% of the 1%.
They do.
And I think that there's a huge market that doesn't get enough attention, the middle class and the lower class of people who still need to eat, who still need to there's money that can be made serving these people and providing community for these people. And they're just almost to your point, the objective is still the same, to serve and to do the unexpected.
I think everyone deserves to be treated the same. I remember in our New York shop, one of our accounts was a company called Metal Container, and Metal Container was owned by Anheuser-Busch, and Metal Container was the company that made the aluminum cans for Budweiser, and I probably delivered there once a week, and I got a call from Metal Container saying, "Hey Dave, we need an order this week. It's got to be special. The big bosses are coming in from St. Louis," and without being a jerk, I kind of said to her, "Georgia, I don't know how to explain this to you, but if you told me that it was for 5 janitors, I would try to make it just as good. I don't know how to do it two different ways. If it leaves our business, it has to hit our level of where we're happy with it. And I appreciate you warning me about the big bosses from St. Louis, but I'm not going to do anything different than I would if you had your janitor meeting." Right. P.S. The next week she called me and thanked me because the guys from St. Louis who were on a national tour said it was the best lunch they had on their whole tour.
Oh, I love that.
So, you have to treat everyone the same. I don't know how to distinguish between customers or, I spend this much here. I don't look at customers that way. If you buy a bagel, you're a customer.
Everybody deserves dignity.
Yes, and respect and in my eyes, some friendliness, if we can include some friendliness in the equation.
100%. So 89. So from 84 to 89, you're
in the wine industry. And
where did you make it? Where were you in 88, for example? What was going on in your life where you're thinking you might try something different?
Here's another, ultra personal part of my life. I
have a tendency to
bring those out. I was happily married, had a baby at home. But I found myself out with beautiful women 4 nights a week in this wine world, people drinking a lot. I looked around. Very few of my associates had happy marriages. Most of them were divorced. And I realized that, this might not be the safest place for me to be on a Tuesday night on top of Windows on the World with 5 beautiful drunk women hanging off of me. So I had a couple of eye-opening experiences along the way, and I kind of started burning out on the city too. Commuting to New York was just after 8 years was starting to get to me. So I knew I needed a change. I didn't really know what it was. I actually thought I was going to open my own wine shop, and I was looking in New York City for locations, and I was going to have to take on partnerships, and it was getting complicated. In the middle of that process, a friend called from upstate New York and said a bagel shop was for sale in a town, and that I have an interest in looking at it. And that was the beginning of what would be a 19-year doctorate degree in every mistake one can make in the food business. I can't wait to hit those mistakes. Oh my God. I mean, so what was it piled up on me?
Total curveball in your life. You didn't have a plan. You never had a dream. You had experience working in a bagel shop. You got an MBA from the best in the biz. Not maybe an MBA, but
no, I wasn't in a managerial level then. Right. I was baking.
But it wasn't strange to you, at least.
No, I mean, I kind of had a hunch what a bagel shop looked like and how it worked. On a P&L level, I was as dumb can be, and overpaid for this business. Probably could have gotten it for half of what I ended up paying for it. having said that, if I had known I was going to be there for 19 years, it was worth what we paid for. So, but yeah, that would be the very first mistake, was the actual purchase of the business.
Let's get in. So you get this phone call. It's in upstate New York. What was the town?
It was in Monroe, New York.
Monroe, New York. Where is that, like, latitude-wise?
Monroe is in lower Hudson Valley. Only people from New York City call it upstate because it's really downstate.
Right.
But it's about an hour and 10 minutes north
Relativity
of New
is a
York.
powerful concept.
Yeah, it's about an hour and 10 north of New York City. So
Got it.
we were the farthest county that firemen and police officers in New York were allowed to live in legally.
Okay.
Because they have to be there, within a range for emergencies.
So what was the appeal of the space? When you got the call, you went there, you went to go look at it. Like, what made you bite?
What did Frank Gerber call it? An entrepreneurial seizure. He writes a book called The E-Myth. I don't know if you've ever read it or
Yes,
not. Yeah,
I
so
have.
It's
a must read for anybody.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't read it till after I was in business. But I had what they call an entrepreneurial seizure, where you think you're capable, where you believe in yourself.
I make bagels better than anybody else.
Yeah, I can do this. I mean, look at these dum-dums that are doing this. I could do this in my sleep. And I went into it with a high school friend who had no experience in the food business. He was an accountant.
That's a good partner to have.
You would think. It didn't work. It would be the first of 2 divorces I would have as partnerships there. And, my only partner now is my wife, who's stuck with me in and out of the business. But, started with a partner, didn't know much. It seemed like we got off to a bad start, undercapitalized.
Yeah, like hit those, like, undercapitalized, like, knowing what you know now, reflecting back at that time, like, if you could just like get in a time machine and be like, do these things.
Biggest difference between this successful business and that business was capitalization. Here I had a partner in the beginning who was financially capable, and this store took at least 2 years to hit profitability. So he was able to keep us going and kept some financial discipline in this company. That's what I think we were missing more than anything in New York, was that degree of discipline where you stay within your means all the time and you have plans if you're not. So I don't even know how to catalog the levels of mistakes we made there, but I went through 2 partners. I had a bookkeeper and Bezel, 2 sales tax audits. Just about every mistake one can make in small business, some out of naivety, some out of financial pressure. I had a bookkeeper who I thought was sending tax payments in who wasn't. So but all of these mistakes, each and every one of them, I own, because they all come back to me. And, when I opened this business, I accepted that responsibility in a more mature way than I did in my first business.
What does that look like, accepting responsibility in a more mature way?
That means you can trace anything that goes wrong in your company to you. Whether it's you didn't hire the right person, didn't teach them correctly, didn't motivate them properly, didn't guide them the way you needed to, didn't surround them with the equipment and tools they required, didn't keep them. Anything that can go wrong in this business, I have to own.
Yeah. For you, in the first business, was there a tipping point where things started to change for you? In terms of, like, figuring it out.
Yeah. I'm going to be embarrassed in saying this.
I appreciate the vulnerability.
We did so many wonderful things in 18 and a half years and touched so many lives and helped so many people, but we were never a successful business.
What defines success at this point for you?
To me, a successful business has some financial stability.
Fiscal responsibility.
Yes, yeah, and that was the one rail that we never could really...
Were you profitable? Were you ever in the black?
Yes, but not enough to make up for the years in the red.
Right, especially when you're slinging flour and water in the 80s and 90s where the margins are...
Yeah, I mean, I made classic errors down there. This business is a better looking facility. That one, we needed to invest more money, dress it up nicer, and then change our pricing. And we never did that. We always undercharged for our catering there in a upper middle class community. I never charged enough. Catering's a funny thing because when you're doing weddings and stuff like that, there are always incidental costs that pop in. I don't care how many weddings you've catered. There's going to be something going wrong, something running out, something popping up. And you need to keep that included in your cost. That has to be factored in. And for too many years, we worked for customers down there, specifically catering. And we were doing my partner for 8 years was a culinary trained chef in New York. So we were an oddity. We were a bagel shop that did weddings, you know.
Yeah. What was the pain for you prior to figuring out the financial responsibility? What was it, like the struggle, the pain?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I probably hit the depths of depression during our lowest points in business.
How far?
The sales tax audit was the worst part.
How far did that? So if you opened in 89?
That was, we were 10 years into our 12 years into business.
So 99.
Something around there, yeah.
And you get audited.
Yeah.
And
found out that payments that we thought had been made were not. And then we owed more money than we had. And my way out of it was to take a second mortgage on our home to clear up our financial debt to the state of New York.
I mean, you mentioned that you were depressed, but take me, like, where were you? What were you feeling? What were the emotions you were feeling?
I really felt like, and I had worked so hard down there, you know, to have put that much effort in and have little to show for it, or worse, debt to show for it, was probably as demoralized as I've ever been in my professional career. And thankfully, I've always had a strong family, and my wife, she's my strength. And
how was your family there for you?
What's that?
How was your family there for you? Give me an example.
Well, you know, life always goes on, right? I mean, you know, I learned that from Robert Frost, the great New Hampshire wordsmith, who, you know, is probably the greatest poet in American history, lived 85 years, and when they asked him at 85 what he had learned in life, he said, it goes on. You know, and he's right. It goes on even when you're being audited, even when you have a death in your family, even when the worst day occurs. Life doesn't stop for you. And my children, you know, their lives were going on. They were still doing sports. Son was wrestling, daughter's in ballet. I mean, you know, there wasn't a lot of room at home for me to stay in the deep funk that I wanted to put myself in.
Where did you reach to? Like, what depths did you have to reach to keep going during this point, this emotional depressional point? Like, where did you find
the strength,
the motivation to keep going, to go on?
I mean, this is going to sound really ridiculous, but I wrestled in high school, and wrestling's the kind of sport where you get beat up every day.
215 weight class?
No, I actually weighed 170, but I couldn't beat the two brothers that were in front of me, so I wrestled unlimited. It wasn't even heavyweight back then. It was unlimited. I was 175 pounds wressling 300-pound guys.
Like, I did 210 and I was 190.
Yeah.
It was fun being the limber dude with those roly-polies.
Yeah. But wrestling is the one sport that teaches you that quitting isn't an option. And even people who aren't successful at it, and I wasn't a great wrestler, but when you get beat up every day in practice and dust yourself off and get back out in the center of the mat, there's a quality of resilience that you develop that you don't even know you have. And I think that was in my gas tank. When I was getting beat up in business, I think I was relating to those days when I didn't want to get up anymore and forced myself to do it. It wasn't easy. We went through some dark times.
Wrestling was by far the hardest sport I've ever played. It's a sport against yourself.
It really is. Yeah. It's mostly mental.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have the mindset right. I went through a 2-week period in New York where we got audited. My father was given a terminal cancer diagnosis, and our son's 16-year-old friend from the wrestling team hung himself. That all happened within 2 weeks for us in New York, and that was easily the darkest 2 weeks of my life, and probably took us 5 years to climb completely out of.
So from 99 to like early 2000s,
it was
5 years.
It was challenging.
What was the? So what was it? It was just time and chipping away and consistency and showing up and having a plan. Like we probably had a payment plan to the IRS.
Yeah, no. Well, payment plan was my second mortgage. I just took care of them, and it was a state in New York. It wasn't the IRS, but yeah, no. I think, look, I used to, I'll be a little off color here. When I used to coach wrestling a little bit, and when I used to have a kid that was too down, I would pull him aside and I was like, I'm going to teach you a new move. And I did this once at the state championships in New York to a kid. And the kid would look at me, he's like, he's ready for me to teach him the move of the century. I'm like, this is a special move. I said, I want you to grab your right ear with your right hand and your left ear with your left hand and pull your head out of your ass. And, that was the move I needed back then. I had to get myself upright again to start seeing life the way I needed to see it.
What did it look like for you to pull your head out of your ass?
It's a better view when you do. Yeah, no.
How did you start living your day differently, your life differently at this point? What disciplines did you have to develop?
Well, first discipline was we had to rearrange our staffing and our payroll, which is that's the one thing you always can change pretty quickly.
So do more with less.
Yeah, and often my mistake back then was to do all the work. I'd replace 2 people and start working 16-hour days, and this is one of those doctorate lessons that I learned in Monroe. Is that's not the secret to success. I've had 5 surgeries in the last 4 years, and almost all of them are related to the overwork that I did in our New York store. Physically, mentally, I was lazy there, and I would hide under the 16-hour workday as a reason not to go home and look at the financials. I would kill myself baking bagels, making salads, waiting on customers, making platters, doing all the physical work of a deli, and never really excelling at the ownership management level of the deli.
It's funny, you hear people say that they're addicted to work, right? And most addictions are a result of trying to escape something.
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
And when
I
people
didn't
are
want to look
addicted
at
work, they're working so hard so they don't. Yeah, exactly. Like the other things that your other responsibilities.
Yeah, and this is the old Dave. I was a different person there. And I can't. I have to be careful here because I know my New York staff's going to hear some of this, and they're going to say, "Wow, we had a great place. What's he talking about?" And it was a great place. It was a very special place. I still get letters now. We closed in 2006. We sold to another operator, and I still get letters today from people who miss us there. So I know what we did there was very special and honorable, but I also know. I would advise a lot of people not to repeat many of the things that I did there. And
so, if 3 big things that you can leave with us, not to repeat, just to summarize, what would they be?
Number 1, be really careful with partnerships. I mean, there are natural partnerships. I had a partner here. He didn't work 1 minute in this store. He was financial. So. Here we both had our distinct roles. His role was to watch the numbers and the money. My role was to make sure the food went out properly and customers were pleased. That was a natural partnership. That made sense. In New York, we overlapped a lot, and we were friends. Being partnered with a friend where you can't have those hard conversations and say what you really need to say. There's no room in business for lying by omission. You have to discuss the tough stuff. That is so critical, and to do it again, and look, whenever you have that entrepreneurial seizure, your first day of business, every partnership's wonderful. It's like the first day of the honeymoon, for crying out loud. I mean, who isn't bright-eyed with the greatest schemes and plans, and we're going to be success stories, and that's the great partnership day, but you have to look at how are we going to get along on the worst day. And, have a better buy-sell than I had written out. We didn't have any of that negotiated.
So partnership agreements.
Partnership agreement. Really got to be ironclad, all discussed. Skip no points. And the harder the item is to talk about, the more important it is to talk about.
It sounds like you also took a lesson from the E-Myth here, and you learned that with partnerships, you need to have a hierarchy, a literal, I'm responsible for these things, you're responsible for these things. Was that a lesson from the E-Myth when you wanted to choose a partnership?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I never even thought I'd have another business after New York. I came up here to be the general manager at Applebee's. I thought it would be easier.
We'll get into that. So the first thing, we're giving us 3 things, right? The first thing was partnership advice.
Partnership advice is number 1. Number 2 is you can't work yourself out of a problem. You know, if you're doing something incorrectly, working 3 more hours that day won't make it better. And, you know, that took me years to discover that answer.
So don't work harder, work smarter.
I mean, it's such a cliche, but yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and work with a purpose, you know, not just work, but work with a plan and a purpose.
Did you have a purpose then?
Just the mission statement, you know.
Was it the same mission statement then?
Yeah, yeah. I haven't changed it.
Well, how has your purpose shifted?
The purpose shifts because I need to know we're stable. I can't live month to month when I'm responsible for paying people's mortgages here. So, you know, my purpose is to please customers, but it's also to have a financially sound company that can do good things for a lot of people, including charitable work.
Yeah.
So, you know, those are all important things to me now. I don't know if those were on the top of my list back then.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I think for some reason, a lot of people in this industry are very anti-profit. Like, money is bad.
You know, that probably was me in New York.
It was me at one point, too. And then I think you start to realize that, like, with money, you can do so much good. And you can create opportunity for other people. It's this lubricant. It's this social lubricant that we have to be able to choose and put our money, our energy into what we believe in, our purposes, our missions, and to serve. We can serve so well with money if we're consciously capitalistic. Right?
So I sold the business in New York to a guy who had threatened to put me out of business. He had a business that was twice the volume of mine and a few towns away, and he had loved the town we were in and kept on talking for years that he was going to come in and knock me out. And, you know, one day he came in and just made me an offer on it, decided to buy our business. So I took it. It wasn't a great offer, but it was a good enough offer to take. And after burying my parents that year and going through the audits and all those 5 years I just described to you that we went through, I was ready for a change of scenery. So I took the offer. We moved up here, and about 6 months later, I get a call from him. This is a multimillionaire calling me, and he's like, "Dave," and I said, "Yeah," and he's like, "Did you give out bagels to this organization?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then he starts listing like 5 other Did you give out the? And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And at the 6th one, he's like, "No wonder why you didn't make any money here." Now, I think he's so wrong that it's not even funny, to be honest with you. And P.S., he ended up selling it 2 years later because he lost a lot of our customers. But that's the part of us that's always been, I think, special and unique, is our community attachment, our community involvement. You know, everyone wants to call themselves a community business, but there's a way to do that. There's actually a way to live that.
What does that look like?
It's everything we do. Is every person that walks in here is part of our community. It means reaching out to neighbors in need without being asked. I've done some things that, you know, we had somebody lose a child unexpectedly here. This is a few years ago, and they didn't have any money, and, you know, so I reached out. We did the funeral. I mean, 150 people's worth of food. I don't do that to get recognized. You know, that's, in Judaism, charity is the word tzedakah. I don't know if you ever heard that, but the definition of tzedakah is it should be done anonymously. So I'm almost uncomfortable talking about some of the things that I do because a lot of it I don't want to be really recognized for. So
you're tapping into why I always say marketing is the bane of human existence, because like with social media, it's like show your work, show the people, like, and I think people do charitable things and they do it so they can be seen, and it becomes like this. Like it just kind of takes the integrity out of the act.
Well, I'm on both sides of that coin because, you know, now I'm the chair of Best Buddies New Hampshire, and I don't go anywhere without talking about Best Buddies. Right. So, you know,
so it inherently just pulls, like, I think the worst part of humanity, the worst part of being human is ego, being seen, wanting to be seen. Which is it's a human nature to want to be seen. It's like we need to be seen. But when we put that front and center, and it becomes about being seen and not doing the thing that earns the attention, like doing the right thing, doing the hard work, having integrity. It's just I think we get things out of order sometimes.
I
to
know.
Live in the new world.
After doing this now since 1989, I can look at you unequivocally and tell you that anything we've given away, we've received back.
Yeah.
That there's no doubt in my mind that all the community support that we try to show, we receive in return.
Yeah.
There's no, we've grown every year since we opened here. So that doesn't happen if the community isn't part of what you're doing. And
Got it.
New York City was a different community. I was on Broadway between Waverly and 8th Streets in Greenwich Village, and like 100,000 strangers would pass by your door every day when you're in New York City. But even there, I had my regulars.
Your block.
Yeah, and community is a funny word. It doesn't end at the town limit. Community to me is. Last week we sent a donation to Asheville, North Carolina, because I feel like they're hurting. And
there's a part of me that wants to go there with my camper just to tell the stories of what's happening, but I'm wondering if they're ready for it.
My guess is they may not be. The
Right.
people we sent money to have been unable to really respond often. They're in the middle of doing so much work
Right.
every day. But my point is, my version of community doesn't have a town line. My version of community is humanity. So
it ripples out as far as the impact you can make.
if we're not here to help each other, I really need someone to explain to me why we are here. I don't
Yeah.
know why we're here if that's not the reason.
Well, there's this analogy I like to use, and this idea of like you want to make an impact when you make an impact, you send out ripples. Think of like a big boulder hitting like water. You could toss a penny in there, the ripples will go out. But if you drop like a 1-ton boulder in water, it's going to make a splash, and those ripples, those waves are going to go further. And I think we put our energy into the waves and not into the drop. Like putting your energy into doing the thing that makes the ripples. We put the energy into like, how can I get more of a reach? How can I get a further ripple instead of doing things right here at home?
Well, I mean,
making a difference.
I have so many stories in my 50 years of waiting on folks, but some of my really tough stories come from 9/11. We were in New York. There were 8 firemen that lived in our town. There were a lot of stock traders. We lost a lot of people in our area, and 9/12 was actually a harder day for me because I personally made 8 food deliveries the day after 9/11, including to a home of a fireman who would not come home. And
That's rough.
yeah, it was just really, really challenging. I wouldn't even send a staff member out for these deliveries. I took them all myself because I knew it was going to be a tough day. And fast forward a few months later, a customer of ours named Mike, who is a really nice Irish guy, a detective in the New York police force, he had lost his brother who was a stock trader. And Mike came into our store and he asked me, he's like, Dave, can you help me out? I want to have we're going to do a race. My brother was a runner, so we're going to have this race around the high school track to raise money for his 4 kids. I said, of course, Mike, what do you need? He goes, well, whatever you can give me. I'm like, well, how many people are there? He goes, well, we're expecting 150, but I don't think you can do that. I'm like, no, we got you. So we covered 150 plus coffee, juice, fruit, pastries, bagels. And when I told him we would do it, he started crying in our store, which I'm going to do right now. I'm telling the story, but this big tough cop had just come from the other bagel shop, and the other bagel store offered him a dozen bagels. So, how many places was he going to have to go and ask for help to help his brother's memory,
Yeah. That's the stuff. That's the stuff that keeps you going. That's the stuff that matters. That's
What
the
did it
stuff-
cost us?
Right.
$500? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what it cost us. It wasn't going to make a difference between Dave going to the islands this year or not going
Yeah.
to the islands this year. But to see this tough cop so humbled, just the fact that he was in his sorrow having to go door to door asking for food, I wanted to take that away from him. So that stuff gets recognized. And I didn't do it for recognition, but it's impossible for the 150 people that we fed that day not to know where the food came from either. So when I say it always comes back, I really mean that. It always comes back.
100%.
No one's going to do something, and I didn't need Facebook. I wasn't on Facebook back then.
Right.
You know, there wasn't even any internet. I don't think. Well, who knows? But maybe MySpace was coming out. But yeah, I mean, this is in our DNA. This is every employee here knows that's what I want. You know, I don't work in the shop all the time, so it's imperative that they have to know, what would Dave do?
Right.
You know, would Dave help this person? Would Dave want to care for this? Would Dave carry this bag to their car if they had 2 kids in their arms?
Right.
So they need to understand the philosophy of Dave.
I love saying this, and I say it all the time. Behind every great restaurant is a great person, and their businesses are an extension of who they are, what their values are, what their vision is, what their mission is, and that's the cool thing about business and capitalism is you can reincarnate your values into the business. You can use that business to be a vehicle to ripple out.
Especially when you're successful.
Yeah.
You know, when you're struggling, it's hard. You know, when we were losing money in New York, you can't actually do all those things that you want to do. So,
which is why it's so important to be fiscally responsible.
Correct.
So back to the biggest lessons. First one is, you said partnerships.
Yeah.
Second one was you can't work yourself out of, what was the verbatim expression you used? Working yourself out of a problem.
You can't work yourself out of a problem. No.
And what's the third thing?
What would be the third thing?
I mean, is it fiscal responsibility?
Well, yeah. I mean, it sort of ties to the second one too. But yeah, I mean, they're connected.
I don't want to put words into your mouth.
No, I mean, we needed a better plan. We didn't do the proper financial planning. You know, we plan here. We didn't plan there.
Yeah.
You know, you can't work hard and hope.
Right.
You know, that doesn't work.
So from 1989 to what year did you end up selling?
2006. My parents both passed within 4 months. We were caring for them. Our son was already off to college. Our daughter was a junior going into her senior year in high school. So it felt like the right time to relocate.
You opened Big Dave's in 2018. Sorry, 2008.
2010. So there's a few years in between.
4 years?
A little less. Probably more like 3.
Okay.
We moved up in 2007.
What was your plan take us to that point where you're like, we want to move?
We wanted to go to a place that we had vacationed for 20 years, that I needed a change of scenery.
What is it about North Conway?
What's that?
What is it about North Conway?
Well, we used to camp about 20 minutes north, half hour north of here every summer. A little place called the Wild River Campground. 14 tent sites, no showers. It was very quiet. Kids would unplug their electronics. You know, it was nice.
Yeah.
And it would bring us through North Conway for food or shopping at some point during that week.
You said you needed a change.
I really thought I needed a change out of self-employment because of that 18-and-a-half-year stress job. I thought Applebee's was going to be fun, you know. I thought, hey, you know, I get a paycheck, health insurance, don't have to worry 24/7. And then Applebee's made the mistake of taking 4 interviews to hire me, and I spent one day trailing the general manager, and he was getting beat up like the worst day of my self-employment day. And I'm looking at him like, this is not less stressful. This isn't going to be any easier for me. And they wanted to send me to a restaurant where they train people, and you have to wear your hat and call each other Apple Buddy. I didn't see me doing it. So by the 4th interview, I politely turned the job down. They had flown a guy in from Iowa. I told him no. He added $10,000 a year to it. I told him no again. And here we are in North Conway, not one connection. I didn't know one person here. We opened a burrito shop.
A burrito?
A burrito shop called Mountain Dog Cafe, DAWG. In fact, Vanessa was an employee at Mountain Dog Cafe, and she's back with us now.
She's wearing glasses.
Vanessa, say hello. Just wave, Vanessa. We're talking about Mountain Dog Cafe. Yeah, Mountain Dog Cafe was a year and a half. It was my first failure. I was told that North Conway's where self-employed people came in $80,000 Mercedes and drove out in $300,000 Greyhounds. And I realized what they were talking about. Yeah, it was in the heart of the village. It was a fun shop, but it was small, outdoor seating. It rained every weekend one summer and killed us, and it didn't work.
Knowing what you know now, it was just a bad timing for the season, or
I didn't love the location. I think I was a little burnt still.
Yeah.
I don't think I was ready to be self-employed.
I'm thinking burrito
again.
concept back in 2006, 2007. Like, you were ahead of the curve, man. There's a lot of money a lot of people making good money slinging burritos. Right?
Yeah, no, I think it was a good idea. I don't have all the answers to why it doesn't work, but again, like I said earlier, it always traces back to myself. So,
if you're putting it on yourself?
Yeah, I'm putting it on myself because I don't think I gave myself enough time to rest up in between the two. I think I went right from one incredibly stressful situation into another incredibly stressful situation, and we signed a bad lease. We were paying more than that space was worth, and the landlord, on my way out, he wanted to lower the rent by half after we were already done. I'm like,
Right.
I asked you a year ago to work with me. You didn't.
Right.
So I left there. I was 47, unemployed. Sue was cleaning homes and waiting tables at a local restaurant. And I spent a year trying to find a job and couldn't find a job. No one would hire me here, not even like to drop French fries. I can't give you the complete explanation of the why of that, but I spent a year, and then my friend in New Jersey, who is a dear old friend, I was commiserating, and he said, "Schmuck, why don't you do what you did in New York up in North Conway?" And I guess by then, after the year of looking for work and not being productive, I think I had recharged and was now ready for this challenge, which, believe me, you come in here in our glory year now, but this took a while to get off the ground.
What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
Going into this in 2010, with all this prior experience behind you, this like school of the hard knocks, what were you doing differently this time? What was the narrative you were telling yourself? I'm going to do it differently this time.
Number one, we were going to stay within our means. We were going to be responsible fiscally. We weren't going to borrow from Peter to pay Paul. We weren't going to, so many bad habits I had in New York, cash advances on credit cards to make payroll or rent, things that you just don't do in business and shouldn't do in business. And here I took on a financial partner who wouldn't allow any of that nonsense. He was very disciplined. And
so knowing your lane and finding people who are strong where you're weak.
It actually freed me up to focus on building. Our partnership was what I would call an ideal partnership, because he relieved a lot of the general overhead concerns that every business has in the first year or two. He took those on, and he watched how our money was coming in and going out, and it allowed me just to show up and build the client base, improve our product. It was New England, northern New England, doesn't have quite the familiarity with bagel shops, is where I come from. I come from Jersey, where there could be 3 in a town,
right.
And that's common. So coming up here, folks didn't know what to make. This was a check cashing spot. This wasn't a food business. So every header you see is a wall that we had to knock down. We spent almost $150,000 building this place before we bought one piece of equipment, and we don't own the building. So this was a big risk we were taking.
Yeah. So, I mean, lots of things like staying within your means, I think, is to your point earlier, like most restaurants fail because they're undercapitalized. I mean, it sounds like you didn't have a lot of money put away when you were opening this. So did you have to raise? Did you have to get loans, or where did it come from your capital partner?
He made this whole dream happen.
How'd you know this person?
Oh, we know each other since we're 18.
Okay.
We used to get in big trouble together
Was this
when
the
we were
same
kids.
person that called you a dummy or whatever it was that you should open a bagel shop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. His name is Neil, and he never wanted credit. But without him, we're not here. Okay. No one else would have helped me at that time. I didn't have strong enough personals for any bank to want to loan me money.
Why do you think he helped you?
Number one, he's a good human. I mean, he's a good friend to all of his friends, and we're close. I mean, he had seen intimately my whole journey in New York, good, bad, and ugly. He also was self-employed. He had a very successful garment. They used to manufacture tuxedos, hotel uniforms, stuff like that. So he came from a business background, and I think he believed in me. I mean, at a time when I started to lose belief in myself, I think he showed a lot of faith in me, and I didn't want to let him down. My early years here, that was a big part of my drive. Was I have to show him that he showed his faith in the right person. So, I had an opportunity. I probably knew this was our last opportunity to come where we were financially. I didn't see this coming again,
right.
And we wanted to get it right. And I started, funny enough, by listing every mistake I thought we had made in New York. And whether it was menu, whether it was pricing, whether it was staffing, whether it was organization, whether it was how we process customers, everything I didn't want to repeat, I wrote down on a piece of paper. And that exercise, along with one other thing that I'm going to get to, is the reason for our success, I think.
Yeah, so to summarize, you did like a deep reflection on what you weren't going to do again. You opened a bagel shop where you could instantly be the number one bagel shop in the town or the area because you were the only bagel shop.
Not true. There is another bagel store.
Dunkin' Donuts?
No, there's another bagel
really?
shop in North Conway called
really?
Bagels Plus. Yeah, and they do a good job. They're not they're a good shop.
But I think there's something to be said about going to where there's not a lot of competition.
Right, it was a little different.
Yeah, and like you can instantly, it's much easier to be number one.
I felt confident coming in.
Right.
I mean, I knew if we, worked up to our abilities, and that other shop is a bit away from us. So I knew there was a wide open market for us here.
And then the first thing you said is like you're going to stay within your means. You're not going to you're going to let cash flow determine your business.
Yeah, and a lot of that is also like menu driven. Like, I don't know. There's so many things we did out of you mentioned the word ego before, right, which has sometimes been my challenge. And in New York, we tried to be everything to everyone, and not here. Here we had in New York, we sold 12 types of coffee every day. I'm like, no, we're going to sell 4 coffees.
So you narrowed your focus.
We tried to make this the Reader's Digest version of our New York business, where let's take the top 20% in every category and focus on that.
Yeah, what happens when you do that?
It was successful.
But why? Why does that work?
Because you're streamlining. You're not spread all over the place. You're setting up a clear identity of who and what you are. North Conway, we're going into slow season, and it always cracks me up because this is the time of year when seafood restaurants start advertising Italian specials. And I always smile when that happens because that's not what you are, So, and I laugh because when we were in the burrito shop, we tried doing stuff like that when it got slow. And it's just, you can't be something that you're not. And the best food businesses and restaurants, in my opinion, are usually known for 3 or 4 things. I mean, they usually nail a few things that they get very famous for, and and do it really well and consistently well, and that's what you hang your hat on.
So you said it took time to get to where you are today with this location. You're now 14 years in.
Yeah,
2010
we opened in January of 2010.
So almost 15.
Almost 15 years. Yeah.
So when did things what were the shifting points for you? The different tipping points along the way.
Well, here's where I'm going to give you the big secret that I debated whether I would tell today or not. This is something that I think is more responsible for our success than any other thing. 9 months in to the business, we were losing money. And my financial partner that I just waxed so wonderfully about was pissed. And he called my landlord without me knowing to tell him that we might be selling. This is 9 months into this venture. My landlord came in the next morning and was like, "Is your partner crazy?" And I'm like, "A little bit. Why?" And he's like, "He called me last night and said he might sell the place." And I'm like, "Huh, he hasn't told me that." So things were less than perfect between us at that point, and there was a lot of stress and, frankly, almost feeling a sense of desperation to make this happen. So I went back to doing what I always did. I'm a salesperson, that I'm more of a salesman than I am a food guy. I hate to say that to a restaurant unstoppable person, but I was born to sell. I could sell wine. I can sell anything I believe in. So I started coming in a couple hours early every day, baked an extra rack of bagels, and started bagging 20 different bags every day with a dozen bagels, a pound of cream cheese, our store menus, knives, plates, napkins, and what. I would leave here at 8 o'clock every morning or 7 a.m. every day, and I would make 20 stops every day to different places in our valley, businesses, schools, anything.
Guerrilla marketing.
What's that?
Guerrilla marketing.
At its finest.
Yeah.
Sue would call me. "Did you just go to so-and-so insurance?" "Yeah." "They just ordered 12 sandwiches." "Did you just go to so-and-so?" "Yeah, they just ordered." It was immediate response, and it was what we needed because I didn't have the luxury of saying, "We're going to get this going in 6 months." I had a partner that was ready to pull the plug on the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that is our number one. That took us from... That really took us over the edge.
It's when your back's up against it that you kind of find what you need to kind of that little bit of extra that will get you over the edge. But I think the other thing you mentioned, which is I think interesting, you said you're a salesperson.
I am.
And I think the best restaurateurs are salespeople. Daniel Pink's book, To Sell is Human. He gets into, I think we all are salespeople to a degree. We're all selling ourselves to somebody, whether you're going on a date, at some point we're selling something. And I think that what resonated with me with what you shared is that if you believe in it, you can sell it. And I think that is why it's so important to have a mission statement, to have a purpose statement, to have a vision, to have core values, because that is, you're selling, and all you're doing, you're selling who you are to your team. You're selling what you do to your community. And if you are a salesperson, I think that is such a great skill to have because you're selling what you do, why you do it. And you need all that to reverberate out. I think having that skill set as a salesperson to motivate others, to inspire others, to lead others is an invaluable skill set.
It's just to get this place open, I had to sell my investor partner on it. I had to sell this landlord on. Right. He didn't want a food business in here. I had to sell so many people on this idea just to make this idea happen. So the selling it starts before the first day of business. Right. It begins when you're in the concept stage. And I just, for me, sales is based on sincerity. If you're sincere and you really telling people what you feel in your heart, if it's a good product, they'll buy it. Yeah. And for me here, it's so important that we believe in what we're selling. That's why I can't sell frozen foods off of a truck here.
I mean, we're here today to talk about you, but what you're sharing with me is really resonating because I think recently what I've gone through with Restaurant Unstoppable, where I'd like to say that I have two customers. My first and priority customer, the people I exist to serve, is my listener. Right. But to make that happen, I have a secondary customer, which is my sponsors, the tools and services that pay me to run ads. Right. And there was a shift happening where the landscape of sponsorship was changing, where sponsors wanted to have more collaboration. They want more collaboration with the podcast host, like being featured on the show, getting testimonials, things like this. And I started seeing the shift happening where my priority was going to become the sponsor and not the listener. And for me, what you were saying with your values, and if you believe in something, you can sell it. Like, I was starting to lose faith and belief in what I was doing. And I was like, I can't sell this anymore. I don't believe in what I'm doing anymore.
Right.
Because if you believe in it, you can sell anything. And I was losing that belief in what I was, not just for my listeners, but also to my sponsors, where like people are telling me I need to be charging 6 figures to have sponsors. And like, and I think it's worth that if you're willing to go and make that your priority and to sell. But for me, it's like, I need to find companies I actually believe in. I need to make less money and find the companies I believe in and that I can get behind and sell the shit out of it because I believe in it. And for me, that's Restaurant Systems Pro. Like, that's our current sponsor. And like, there's a reason why you're only hearing their ads right now, and like, for Me's another great organization. I believe in this company. Right now I'm out to go find those companies I believe in and say, I don't care how much you pay me. I just need to cover my truck payment and my camper payment and I'll have enough purpose to keep going. But when you find that purpose, I think it lets you, to your point, I think it helps you, it keeps you going. It gives you something to sell, something you believe in. What's going through your mind as I'm saying this?
And that's the mindset you need to keep with you in all facets. Like, I hire people with that mindset. I don't care about experience. Like, that's never... I don't think we've ever hired one person based on their experience is going to come in and benefit our business. We kind of know what we want to do here. I hire people completely based on character. I want to find the right person for our company, the person who fits well with our staff, the person who can be kind naturally. You can't ask someone who's not kind to be kind to your customer.
Yeah, Danny Meyer calls them the 51%ers, right?
Danny Meyer was a great lesson for me. He was really one of my hardest accounts to crack when I was in the wine business. Danny was always he was only 28 when he opened Union Square Cafe. He wasn't much older than I was, and it took me a year and a half, I think, to sell my first bottle of wine to him, but I never stopped trying. But the level of service at Union Square Cafe when you ate there and the way you felt when you left there is a lesson I've tried to hold on to my whole life. I mean, Danny Meyer was an expert at customer service. He just knew how to do it. He understood it, knew how to get his staff to execute it. He's a talented guy.
Do you know how he did that? Like you said,
I never saw the inner workings there. Yeah. I know he was big on meetings. He always had staff meetings regularly. He always treated his wait staff a little differently than everyone else too. They weren't like subcontractors. They were part of the team. Yeah. And I think too many restaurants, they just look at waiters and waitresses as subcontractors. Yeah. They come in to do their thing. If you don't want to do it,
I'll find somebody else.
Yeah. Now Danny had again, it's philosophy. I think it's critical for leaders, owners, managers to get their philosophy through to the staff. I mean, I'm sitting here right here with you right now, but I'm confident that 30 feet to our left, they're being greeted with a friendly face and a nice attitude, and I'm not concerned about it. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just something that doesn't happen quickly. I mean, they hear my philosophy all the time, to probably where they're sick of it. Yeah. I mean, I don't care. I mean, they have to know what we do.
So 9 months in, you
go on the sales rampage.
You believe in it. You start putting food in malls. I think that's the best marketing you can do, is put food in malls.
You could
make them taste it.
I wish I had a GoPro on my head with some of these deliveries. I had grown women in a bank jumping up and down, literally jumping up and down, cheering that I was. You know what? We live in a world now with so few nice surprises. That's what I find. Like, soon I'm like Santa Claus here. I can't. If I'm behind the counter, you're going to get something extra in your bag without me saying a word. And my accountant might look at it and say, "Oh, you lost 50 cents there," and I'm like, you know what kind of a smile is worth, or a pleasant surprise is worth? And this, I'll give you another one. I give away cookies to kids all the time here.
You did it while I was here.
I did?
You gave away a little, like, a Queenie, yeah.
Well, I had a kid come up to me a couple of weeks ago. He's like, "Oh, I remember you." I said, "You do?" He goes, "Yeah, I've been coming to your store for 10 years. You gave me a cookie when I was 8 years old." And I'm like, "You remember that?" You can imagine an 8-year-old never forgetting a cookie. I mean, what is that worth? How do you value that? So, I am generous, and I do like to give stuff to customers, and I like to surprise people. It's more than the item. It's that thought that you got something that you didn't order, you got something that you weren't expecting, you got something that went above your expectations.
Right. So after 9 months, you were operating the black.
No, we didn't hit black till almost a 2-year point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So back to being.
So my partner was putting
undercapitalized,
money in and grumbling for a couple of years.
And I think that's one of the big lessons I've learned too, is like whatever you think it's going to take to get open, double it, and then put 2 years of operating capital in the bank to float your business until you can win those regulars.
If you do that, it would flip the failure rate. Right now it's an 85% failure. It would be an 85% success rate if everyone went into their business venture fully capitalized.
Yeah.
But the reality is the people with tons of money don't want to do this type of work.
Because I know that 85% of restaurants.
And the people that do this type of work usually don't have that kind of money. So
what changed after 2 years, if anything? Or is it just consistency over time?
Wear them down. You just wear people down with kindness. You just start doing community work where people start noticing you.
You're new to the community too.
All the more reason we had to be aggressive in that.
Right.
We had to. I didn't. In New York, I raised children there. I was at the soccer fields, the little league games.
Wrestling coach.
Yeah, you meet everybody.
Right.
Up here, we came without knowing one human being. And when we started Big Dave's, that campaign that got me out into the. I ended up going to 400 businesses, 20 a day. I mean, it was, or close to 20 a day. Probably was 15 a day. But, I think I saw almost 400 businesses by the time I was done. And I went to this one guy, Roger, who has a logging company. We're up in a rural area here, not like where you're from. But so I go down this road and I see the sign for Garland Lumber. I'll mention the name. And I take a left and I drive down this street in my pickup truck. I'm a Jersey, New York guy. I don't know where I am up here. And so I'm on this lot with logging trucks and logging equipment, and I don't see a human being. And over my shoulder, I hear, "Can I help you?" And I whip my head around, ready to get shot, And it's this older gentleman named Roger, and I'm like, "Yeah, my name's Dave. I opened this bagel shop. I'm going around introducing myself." And he looks at me, he looks at the bag, looks at the ground, looks at me again, and said, "You came all the way out here to give me this?" I'm like, "Yeah," and I said, "Thank you." Well, P.S. Fast forward, Roger became almost an everyday customer of ours for 14 years.
The power of being seen, taking the time to see people and go to them, and people don't forget that.
Those are the little things that I think we do well. We want people to feel a touch when they come into our business. It has to go beyond food. There's too many food options in the world. You got to give someone else. Yeah, you have to serve good food. That's a prerequisite. But beyond that, if you don't treat me nicely, I don't care how good the food is. It's not going to taste great. I'm not going to like it. If I go to a restaurant and I get ignored by the waiter for 20 minutes and then finally get my dinner, it's never going to taste as good. Yeah. How we treat people, that's something we have control over, and it's probably the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
If you're going to tell me somebody else makes a better bagel, I'm just going to shrug and say, okay, we're all entitled to a different opinion on food, and I'm not saying I make the best bagel. I never suggested no one else can make a better bagel. You know what I mean? But we can do our best to treat you with kindness and courtesy and respect every customer of every day, and that's what our goal is.
So 2 years, you start getting into the black. You start building this foundation of people, relationships with your community. Was there a point, like a next point of evolution for you thereafter?
It came incrementally, really. I mean, I don't think anything, there was no great moment of epiphany in our business from that 2-year point on, other than what the best part about that was my relationship with my investor started improving again.
Yeah.
Because now,
weird how that works.
Now we're friends again, P.S. when we did our final resolution, we used one attorney. There wasn't two attorneys. It was our company attorney, and we had worked the whole agreement out. Like, he and I talked on the phone, so when we called the lawyer the next day, he's like, well, he didn't even know what to do. They're used to arguing, lawyers. Like, no, we figured this out already. Just write this up.
Yeah, just put it in just ink it.
Just write down what we're telling you to write down. We're both going to sign it. So
from like 2012 to this point of like where you start getting in the black, you get your customer base. Any lessons? I mean, I don't like to talk too much about the pandemic because we all know what happened there. But like, did you come out of the pandemic stronger by any chance? Like, where are you today versus where you were past 10 years?
Well, you know, I'm sort of remiss because that is another critical juncture for us. The pandemic hits. I actually got sick, and we ended up closing for almost 3 weeks here because no one knew what was what then.
Did you have COVID?
They didn't have any tests available up here, so I may have. But it was during that time that I was home playing around with the queenie, the pastry that we ended up getting.
I can't wait to get my hands on.
Yeah, they're fun. And so we came back from COVID, and we had to change our whole business model. We took out all the seating. There used to be bar seating across the front here. We took out all the seating. We put a table across by the front door, and we didn't let anyone in. And we went to online ordering. And this all took place within 48 hours. And a good friend of ours, Paul, I have to thank him publicly, who made this all happen because our business increased during the pandemic. We blew up.
So what happened during the pandemic to make you blow up?
Well, people started spending less on dinner. People weren't going out to restaurants with alcohol. So people started splurging at lunch and ordering the extra sandwich, ordering the extra drink, all of a sudden lunch orders started getting bigger, and people liked our model where they could do the order and all they had to do was open that front door and we would bring them the food and they felt safe. So I think we managed the pandemic as well as we could have. I mean, no one did everything perfectly. But, you know, we watched our business grow significantly during it, and we made a lot of new friends during the pandemic.
Yeah. What about your technology? So did you have the option to do online ordering before the pandemic?
No.
What was your solution after the pandemic?
Well, I got on my phone and I saw the Dunkin' Donuts app, and I freaked out. I had like a meltdown. I'm like, they could tell you how many sugars in your coffee, and it was like a whole new world for me. You know, like you could order your coffee online, and so we ended up with an inexpensive system called Oracle called Gloria Foods, which was Romanian. That's a funny customer service story too. We were trying to get this done like in 24 hours, and we're dealing with an American company in California and a woman named Mary, and so Paul and I are writing her emails and she doesn't respond. So we were like, all right, screw it, we're going to go with the Romanians. And we went with Oracle, and they did great. And Mary calls us a week later, and says, hey, want to check in with you guys, see what you're doing for your online ordering. And I'm like, yeah, well, we went with somebody already. And I was so busy this week, I didn't get to you. Who did you go with? I said, we're using Gloria Foods. She goes, you know they're Romanian, right? I'm like, yeah. Well, they're not known for their good customer service, she tells me.
You're calling me
This is the lady that's a week late in her return call, letting me know that the Romanians don't know customer service. But these are the stories you hear in life that you just make your head spin sometimes. But anyhow, we just switched recently to a different company. But yeah, we switched to them and figured it out. And
so you're using Gloria Foods?
Not any longer. No, we were, yeah.
And what about your POS system? What were you using for your POS?
Square. Yeah.
So now I notice you're with Spot On.
Spot On is our new, can I get them to sponsor this? I mean.
No, I'm in conversations. They're one of the two companies, three companies. There's three POS companies that I believe enough in right now that I would work and promote with them. I think you could probably guess what those three are.
Well, you're putting Spot On in there?
Yeah, they're one of the companies.
That's nice.
For me, I would say it's Toast, Square, or Spot On.
Okay.
And I think that
there's Toast, so many of them too.
Toast is probably close to 50% market share right now.
Yeah, I don't love Toast because they kind of have their version and they want you to kind of fit into it. Okay. Spot On was a little more flexible for us, but honestly, the number one reason I'm using Spot On is a friend of mine in town bought it, and I got to watch him go through the whole install in 6 months setup, and he's an in-town resource for me, and he loves them, and they're really, really, I should get paid for this. They're really good at picking up the phone, and the person who picks up the phone actually has an answer.
Yes.
So that's my favorite part of Spot On.
So my breakdown: Toast is the most recommended on the show. They are by far the most,
they're the most popular, right?
Organically most recommended. Square has been around a long time. I think that they are a good solution for simple concepts that don't need the robust solutions. They have everything you need and nothing more.
Right.
And they have a really great program for getting capital. If you need, they will take the payment out of the credit card processing. So if you need a cash front, then you can get into like reasonable terms with paying that cash back.
Right.
I've had really great I've had great things said by people on the show about that program.
But their processing rates are higher.
They are higher. And then Spot On is one of the newer organizations that I've just heard nothing but good things about. And I think the most important thing, and I think at the end of the day, if you have a good system, all the systems are better than what they were 10 years ago.
Right.
So if you have a good system, it's good enough. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is customer support. That should be what you're like. And I think too much people put the emphasis on like the details of like best in class technology or like user experience.
Well, you got to keep one thing in mind. All that technology is all done for one reason. They just want to process your credit cards.
Right.
So all these companies, and there's 60 of them. I went through a wing of the convention center in Vegas, which was just filled with these companies.
Right.
Cake, Toast, everybody.
On and on.
There's so many of them that, you're right. They all basically, I think, can handle the processing. Support, it will come in handy, and
that's
it's
the
necessary,
most important thing,
and especially for us, because I'm not a techie. This isn't my. I started in 1974. We had a pencil behind our ear. It was all men behind the counter. Yeah. We all wore short sleeve white button snap shirts with a little index pad in our pocket, and that's how we waited on customers. Yeah. And if this doesn't work, we're going back to that. I just told everyone. I mean it too.
So I want to go deeper into Spot On. So you had somebody in town that was using Spot On.
Right.
What were they saying to you?
Oh, he was just showing me all the analytics, all the data that he works with off of it. It has a loyalty program. Our old one did not, which we still haven't instituted yet, but we're going to be soon.
What was he saying to you as to why you should choose Spot On?
He just thought it would help our processing in orders. Like, for instance, we were working off paper tickets. You got to see our store in July or August. I mean, we could go an hour wait on our grill, and we could literally have a stack of 50 orders on paper tickets with a rock on top of them. It's just not real. It's not really where we wanted to be. Also, our old system, when you placed an order, would put everything on that ticket, and our grill guy would have to go through tuna salad, queenie, muffin. Oh, there's my bacon, egg, and cheese. So now we went to screens, and we're working off of screens in our kitchen. And
it's KDS.
This is KDS screens, and it's a complicated shift for us. We're changing the way we're processing orders. We're changing the way we're taking online orders.
How long ago did you make this shift?
Early September.
After
it's brand new.
Oh, it's
for
like
us.
2 months. Oh,
Yeah,
not even 2 months.
We're still screwing
What
up.
has the experience been like working with Spot On in terms of?
They're wonderful people. They really they do it in 3 stages. They have one group that's the sales end. The second group does implementation, and that's all. That's a big part of it. That's where they're working on your menus off location, and then the last part is install, when they send somebody in to put all the equipment in and get you up and running. And through each step of the process, the support has just been tremendous.
Give me an example of where they went above and beyond what your expectations were.
Well, for instance, with our package came an hour follow-up Zoom meeting. And at the end of that hour follow-up Zoom meeting, we still had questions. They immediately rescheduled another follow-up Zoom meeting. I mean, without us asking. Just like, we need to do another one of these. And, they're not satisfied until we're happy.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how supported did you feel?
9. 9.5.
Yeah.
They have just always been there to answer each and every question. Now, that doesn't mean everything's gone perfectly. I don't want to give that impression. We've had some bumps in the road. One of the things we're doing, they have this thermal printer, which sticky labels. When the sales told me, I thought it would stick to everything we had. They don't stick so well. So, things like that, you learn as you go. But so far, I have been very happy with them, and my staff more than me works with the system, and they're hopeful. So
yeah, Ray Villeman was the first person to recommend Spot On, and he was out in Tahoe, Lake Tahoe area, and he just, even after the interview, he went on and on about this organization. And then I was talking to, for the same reasons you listed, and then I was talking to Fred Langley from Restaurant Systems Pro, and I was like, Fred, like in terms of like organizations for you, another technology company to work with, like who's like, he's like Spot On, they're like their support, like working with their team, like they're sharp.
They really are.
They're whenever they have to. So Restaurant Systems Pro is a back office like technology solution for like all of your like accounting, processing, purchasing, and like they have to integrate with the POS systems. And I guess according to Freddie, like nobody is as easy to work with.
Well, I'm going to be
Sorry
clear.
if I'm putting you on the spot, Freddie.
I'm going to be clear here, but I'm a bagel baker at heart, so this whole tech stuff is a little over my pay scale. But I'm in Chicago with my friend Bill, who has Spot On, and we're on a river cruise in Chicago during the restaurant show with about 60 young men and women, all under the age of 40. I'd say 28 to 40, that were all techies. Square was on there, Spot On was on there, KDS was on there. What's the company your sponsorship is?
Restaurant Systems Pro.
May have been Margin Edge was on there. And one of the things I noticed is they all integrate with Spot On. Like Spot On was the one company that they all could work with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want it to work. Honestly, I can't sit here and tell you it's working perfectly after 7 weeks. We're still working on it.
Were you resistant to adopting technology?
Yeah, by nature I'm resistant.
What changed in you to say we have to start thinking about using technology?
I listened to my staff. Yeah. This was a move I'm not doing to my staff. This is a move I'm doing for my staff. This is something our staff really wanted.
And how in the it's been just a month.
Pretty much, yeah.
Maybe close to 2 months now. How has it made an impact on your organization? Are you seeing a difference? I know it hasn't been a lot of time for there's still that learning curve that takes place.
Yeah, I mean we've run into a couple bumps in the road, but I think I had 70% of it figured out before it was installed, and I knew that 30% of it we would have to work with it to figure out the rest of it. And I think we're in that area right now where we're starting to narrow down the things we like, things we don't, things we need to change. But overall, and we haven't even scratched the surface in using the full abilities of this company system yet. So, I won't give you my full Spot On review for another year.
I'll
come back to me. And
that's something I'm trying to do. Is I'm really trying to go deeper and follow up with my guests. To your point, I think it's more about building better relationships than having more relationships. So
yeah,
I'll be back.
Well, thank you.
This has been a great interview for the record. I'll go on. This has been a lot of fun, man.
It has?
Yeah, you've been amazing. Vulnerable, open, transparent.
Okay.
Great advice. I'm loving this conversation.
All right.
And I would have never found you if I didn't trust my number one trusted forum of finding guests.
That's pretty
on the
smart. That's a smart idea.
Is talk to other restaurant owners.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense to me.
Thank you. Is there anything we haven't discussed up to this point? Things that you want to get out, that you think should get out, things that you want to communicate to people who are going through or about to go through what you've been through the past 50 years of your life?
Most sane people wouldn't be in the seat I'm in. I mean, I had a lot of opportunities to check out of self-employment, and probably there were a few occasions where it probably made sense to, and I didn't. You have to have, you call yourself Restaurant Unstoppable. You almost need an unstoppable belief in yourself, and that can't be ego driven. When I say that, a belief that you have in your powers the ability to do great things. Because if you don't believe that, you have no right opening a business. If you don't think you have the ability and potential to do something wonderful and great and worthy of your community's support, then you probably don't belong in the business. So it's been a long 50 years for me from my first day in scrubbing those but I still remember that first day.
Yeah.
You know,
I joke that though, if I'm capable of talking people out of opening restaurants, then I'm doing my job. If that is a byproduct of the show, that I don't just help you become unstoppable in owning your business, but also like make you realize like what you see in the media, what you hear, like what you have in your head about this fantasy of what it's going to be like. Here are real stories from real operators.
I was there when Tom Keller failed. I mean, here's the top chef in our world, and I saw him fail.
Yeah.
So there are because you have to have a lot of things right. It can't just be menu. It can't just be food.
Right.
You know, it has to be everything. The whole product is the facility, the location.
There's a million different things that could cause you to fail that are out of your control.
Yeah, and some are in your control. And, you know, it's success is elusive in this industry. I mean, you know, I talked about Bobby earlier. I mean, what a great success story Tuckaway Tavern is. And you go and see an hour and a half wait there every lunch, every week, every day of every week.
Do you know Peter Campbell by any chance?
Peter?
Peter Campbell?
Oh, yeah.
He's literally just texting me during this. I was like, I think they know each other.
I know Peter. Peter and I were
also good friends with Bobby.
I just saw Peter with the Dead Proof guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He was doing a collaboration with them that day.
Yeah.
At Bobby's daughter's memorial golf tournament.
Yeah, I don't know why. I wanted to mention that name because I assumed.
Yeah, you can say hi to Peter for
me. I will for sure. I'm going to respond to him after this conversation. So, I mean, as we go into the future, like. I like to say on the show we talk about how you got here, where you are today, but I like to think that if we can share information about where we're going, if we can share thoughts of like what the industry could be doing better, where it's broken, how we can fix things to have a better future for all operators going forward. Like when I say things like this, what comes to your mind?
Well, I'm a little nervous about the future of the restaurant industry.
Why?
I mean, going to restaurant shows that I've gone to the last couple of years, the technology that's being promoted and pushed forward, it's all because of a lack of staffing. So they have all these combi ovens now that can cook 5 different dishes at 5 different temperatures at the same time. They have kiosks that will replace Sherry or Sue, and you can just go in and hit your order on a screen. And I watched a robot grab the bag, bring it to a bank of cubbies, put it in the cubby, you go up and hit the number. The future of food to me seems so impersonal. And I know a lot of people have grown up, like, you know, the 18-year-olds today grew up with digital technology.
Yeah.
So they're comfortable with that. That's not something, in fact, when I tell you we're working off screens here, I have employees who are more comfortable looking at a screen than talking to an adult.
Yeah.
So they could sit in the back and just make food all day working off of screens, and they're very comfortable doing that. My fear is that personal touch, if you lose that, the independent guy needs that. Like, I understand the chains can get away a little bit without that. But for me to tell somebody that we're a better spot than Dunkin' or pick the chain, Subway, Jersey Mike's, all these guys are in my town here,
right.
You know. I compete with almost every chain known to mankind here.
Yeah.
If I can't be friendlier, if I can't be more personal, if I can't be a little kinder than those guys, we got to close up.
So how do we make sure that people like you who value these things, who recognize the human, I think what you're talking about is human needs to be seen, to be valued, to have relationships, to make it less transactional and more personal, more transformative. How do we get to that point?
Well, you have to make it part of your daily culture. You know, you have to have this conversation not once, not at an intro meeting with an employee, not pat them on the butt and wish them well. This has to be ingrained. This has to be established so fiercely.
Right.
So fiercely that every extension of your business will do it and believes in it. Not just do it because Dave said so, but do it because it makes sense for them to do it. It's in their interest to do it.
I do believe, I kind of get, I'm diving deep into the world of AI and just like the future technologies that are going to be really disruptive technologies. I'm kind of hopeful because I feel like what you're going to see, I think the restaurant industry lost a lot of work to other industry with more security, a lot of blue collar jobs and white collar jobs I think are going to be going away to AI. a lot of like the data driven job. There's just things that you can do in an office setting that AI can do way better. And I think as a result, I hope as a result, people are going to come back to the restaurant industry because it's one of those industries that still is, to your point. So what we're really doing is selling relationships. We're selling experiences. It's the most, in my opinion, human experience that exists. And I think we forgot we literally evolved into what we are today because of our relationship with food. We figured out how to play with fire. We were able to cook food in the whole process. We could eat more protein. We could use less energy to digest that protein. We became hunter-gatherers. We developed agriculture. Our whole existence as a species is a direct relationship with the way we get our food. And I think we've lost sight of it. It's literally food is a commodity. We categorize food in the same category that we would put a rock in,
Right.
And food, with the exception of maybe salt, I don't know, like it was literally a living thing. It's
Right.
life. We transfer life.
I always, tell my staff, when I go out to dinner, I remember the experience and the waiter or waitress long after I've forgotten what I ate that night. And I'll always stick. You need a restroom? You need a restroom? Ma'am? Through the door. That door in the corner. All the way down the hall.
Okay, thank you.
Priorities.
Sorry.
No, priorities.
I saw a kid in need.
That could have gotten a lot worse.
I apologize.
No, you're fine.
The human touch, it's so important everywhere in everything we do. Whether you're going to get your car fixed at the mechanic, how does he make you feel? Do you feel like you understood the problem? Do you feel like you have confidence in that he fixed it? There's a human interaction there
Right.
that is as important as the mechanical work itself.
Yeah, well, like if you look at Moore's law, which basically says that technology expands exponentially when it gets exponentially better. And if you look at technology and you look at science as like information technology, like our ability, I think at the end of the day, humans are a form of technology. We are a machine, we are learning more about how the human ticks and works and what makes us happy. And I think if you ask, like, all people just want to be happy. They all just want to achieve happiness. And the more we learn about the human machine and how it works, we're getting so good at figuring out this thing between our ears and like how that brain works. We know more about the brain today than we ever have known, and there's still so much more to figure out about the brain. But what we're learning is that like there's I almost think we have to de-evolve. We have to go back in time to find to figure out how we were in hunter-gatherer bands and what we were getting during that time, each other, purpose, like. We all had our role in our tribe, I think if we lean more into being human, and I think that our relationship with food is probably one of the most closest, it's life. It's the most closest human form of the thing we do. I think there's going to be a shift back to this world and getting closer to our food and getting closer to the relationships tied with our food. And if you can do that, there's like almost like it's like a cure, not just for our health, but for our mental health.
Well, I mean, there's a reason people break bread together.
Right.
What happens when people dine together? It's social.
Yeah.
You're exchanging conversation. You're sharing warmth with each other as well as nourishment.
Right.
And I think of my late friend Sal's mom. I grew up in New Jersey, a lot of Italian families, and all I had to do was eat food for her to like me. I just have to finish my plate, and your mother likes me. She invited me over every week. Yeah, I'm like, this is the best house I've ever visited.
As we move into the future, I think that you're going to see AI replace people in the workplace in those more technically inclined white-collar jobs. And then I think that's going to leave people searching for purpose. And I think the restaurant industry is going to be there with open arms and saying, if you want to be seen, if you want to be valued.
I think you have a choice right now. I think you can completely automate and make it as mechanical and as touchless as possible, and I think a lot of places it's going to make you feel like you're in an airport all the time, and I think the businesses that go the other direction, and which is our commitment, is to keep that personal touch as part of our company. Every customer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's who we are. I don't, like I said earlier, I mean, food became my medium, but I'm a salesperson. I connect to people, and the people connection here between our front counter, those 4 feet, that's 6 feet right there, is where the magic happens in this business.
Yeah.
And all the employees standing, working since midnight tonight, all the efforts that have gone into this business to make us what we are today, they're all for naught if we don't have that interaction that we need to have at that counter.
Yeah. I do want to make sure we talk about one thing before we start to wrap up. What's your shirt say?
Let me talk about my passion.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you. Indirectly, through Guy Fieri, I was introduced to Best Buddies. Guy brought Bobby Marcotte into Best Buddies. Bobby brought me into Best Buddies. I've been involved with his organization for a couple of years. Best Buddies was started by Anthony Kennedy Shriver of the Kennedy family as a college freshman at Georgetown University in 1989. He started a college chapter, and it basically pairs developmentally challenged younger folks with able people in social settings, but it's branched out now into employment, lifestyle, family support. Works a lot with folks with Down syndrome, autism, but really anybody with any type of need. And I don't like to toot my own horn, but probably my proudest accomplishment in my adult career was seeing this begin in our local high school. I was helpful in getting it started there. So that's Best Buddies to me is a program that I devote a lot of my effort and energy into.
Yeah, I think the restaurant industry is an industry notoriously that's been there for people who face these challenges. I think we help give purpose for these people, and I think that people who tend to be on the spectrum they can handle doing like one thing really well over and over again. They tend to excel at it sometimes. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to make assumptions. You know the world better than I do.
No, I don't know about that, but these folks are very capable, and with proper guidance, love, encouragement, training, I feel a lot of these folks could be much more productive in our world than they actually are today. So it's one of my goals is to see inclusion go into all walks of life, including employment and the restaurant industry. I have some big plans that I'm working on down the road to maybe merge my bagel dream to help Best Buddies, and I can't get too far into that today, unfortunately. But
I guess the point I want to make, regardless of you're a fully functioning individual, as intelligent as could be, or you have developmental disabilities or cognitive disabilities or whatever that might be, we all need to be seen and valued and appreciated.
Absolutely. And dignity.
And that's universal as a human. And I think that the restaurant industry, like, you can give people an opportunity to thrive at something and help them be valued and seen.
Right, and put them in a position to succeed.
Right.
You when you were talking about skill sets before, about doing something exceptionally well, that's true. You spot what that thing is, and you try to set them up for success.
Right. And in many circumstances, they're better at certain things than most other people because what's going through your mind as I say that?
I've had to reevaluate my whole notions of what these folks are capable of. I mean, as I've spent more and more and more. I was in Indiana with a young lady who 5 years ago was a mute, selective mute. She could only talk to one person at a time. This past July, I watched her deliver a speech in front of 2,100 people.
Wow.
She was the first person from New Hampshire to get that honor in Indiana. They do this every year for 35 years. She was the first one in our history to ever go on that stage and deliver that speech. I bawled my eyes out for 3 minutes. It was unbelievable. She would stop every 30 seconds and smile. Her name's Caitlin. She's a lovely young lady. But when you want to talk about abilities, 5 years ago, someone would have told her she wasn't capable of doing that.
Yeah.
And here we are 5 short years later, and she's on that stage delivering a wonderful, eloquent speech. And I said to myself, this is why you can't put limitations on folks, whether able or challenged. Yeah. You can't sit there and say this person's only capable of so much. So we need to give every human should be encouraged and loved and believed in. And when you have that happen, when you set that kind of an environment, then you're going to see better results as a society because everyone will benefit. I can't talk about Best Buddies and not include this. When I talk to the local high school, and I've addressed them a couple times, I told them when I go to the gala, it's not the challenged folks that are having the night of their lives. It's the able folks that are having the night of their lives. They're feeling such true joy from helping a fellow human being.
Yeah.
And until you feel that joy, you don't know what it is. And then once I felt it, I got addicted to it.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's just an organization I truly enjoy loving.
How do we learn more about this organization?
Certainly you can email me, bigdavesbagels@yahoo.com, but Best Buddies is online, bestbuddies.org, bestbuddiesnewhampshire.org. It's a tremendous organization. It's every event I attend, every interaction I have with these folks, they're so grateful, so appreciative, so loving. In so many ways, they're ahead of us, to be honest with you. You know, the only thing someone with Down syndrome can't do is hate.
Yeah.
They don't have a hate gene. They only know how to like. It's something us able people could certainly learn from.
Sure.
And it's the joy I get in life these days.
Thank you for sharing that. So I have a couple questions before we wrap it up.
Sure.
Standard questions that I ask all my guests before that. I'm going to do a quick selfie because I forgot to take one when we got here earlier. I want to make sure we get it. Yeah. One more. Cool. Thank you. All right. The first question I have for you is, what is one thing about your business, a value, a process, a system that makes you truly unstoppable?
This is going to surprise you. We say please and thank you.
I love that.
You know, after every interaction at our register, we don't say 325, we say 325 please. And because for my whole life it sounded differently. And thank you is a funny one because we use so many other expressions now to replace it. Have a good day, have a good one, have a nice day, have a great... None of those mean thank you. And if you look in the dictionary, have a great day does not replace the words thank you. So I'm mandatory. We have to say thank you. After thank you, say whatever you want.
I love it.
But I want every customer in here to hear those please and thank yous. And, you know, I got to share this story with you real
Please.
quick.
I'll stay as long as you want, man.
One of my employees from I have, you know, my first store girl is now 52. So I've had the luxury of watching 15-year-olds turn into 50-year-olds. And you get to see the trajectory of life and what you thought they would be and where they end up and all that good stuff. And one of my young men that worked for me, his name is Jason. He's a great, really sharp young kid when he worked for me. He's in his late 40s, mid 40s now, I guess. He's now a lawyer, and his law firm represents Chick-fil-A. And Chick-fil-A is probably like their biggest account. So he and his senior partner, took Jason to a Chick-fil-A meeting. And during the meeting, the guy at Chick-fil-A said, we started saying please and thank you, and our sales went up 8% last quarter. And Jason, in the middle of this high-power meeting, starts laughing uncontrollably. And his boss, you know, a little concerned, looks at him and is like, is something funny here, Jason? He's like, well, hell, bagel guy I worked for could have told you this 20 years ago. I mean, and it's like a silly, stupid thing, but they're Chick-fil-A sitting there bragging about installing please and thank you, funny. And I've been doing it since '89, and you know, it's something. I hate to minimize what we do here, but it's something that basic can be that effective.
And not hard sometimes to be
so
able to
easy.
do it consistent, but
no,
to keep
it becomes
the people.
habit. That's what habits
Right.
are. You do it every day, it becomes easy.
Then why don't more people do it?
Well, I don't know.
I
think too many businesses don't connect the customer to the paycheck.
Yeah, I think your statement's true, is that it becomes habit, but getting to that point, baking that into your culture, prioritizing that above all else is the hard part. But once you achieve it, it's not as hard as you think it is.
Well, the cool thing, peer pressure is often an expression that's used in negative ways. Peer pressure usually refers to teenagers' use of substances, right? I've never used, I call something called positive peer pressure, where we have enough people in the house that know the right way of doing business. If there's somebody not saying please and thank you, they're going to correct
that's
it.
That's how culture is built.
Yeah, they're correcting it. It's not coming from me. I don't have to correct that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So, when you can get enough people to buy into your philosophy, it becomes the way of doing business.
I love it, man. The mission statement is to change the world through inspiring and empowering the restaurant industry. I think we do that by sharing examples of one individual at a time, how you've evolved, how you've transformed, how you became who you are today. So What is one way that you've personally transformed? How are you a better man today than you were when you got started in this industry?
Wow. Oh, that's a tough one. I think I see a bigger picture today than I used to. You know, I think when you're younger, you tend to see things through your own eyes so much, and I think now that I've been doing this for so long and I've had so many thousands of employees, millions of customers, you start recognizing that this is a much bigger picture than the one you see. To go back to where we started, that's why I'm on this side of the counter. I like to look at the world through my customers' eyes because I never want to lose that perspective. I mean, I don't care if we were 25 businesses, 4,000 employees, I'd still sit on the customer side of the counter. The fact that we're only one little store makes it easier, but yeah, you got to stay in your customer's frame of mind. You have to stay and see life through the customer eyes. That's really the only opinion that ever matters in a business.
This is the last question. If you got the news you'd be leaving this world tomorrow, all the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure. With the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom you could leave behind for the good of humanity and your legacy, what would those 3 pieces of wisdom be?
I guess first thing I always recommend is not to quit.
1.
Have unstoppable belief in yourself.
2.
Be kind.
3. This has been a lot of fun, Dave. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.
You already mentioned your email once. Echo that one more time for us.
It's one long word, Big Dave's Bagels @yahoo.com.
And social handles you want to drop? Instagram handle, do you know it?
It's the Big Dave's Bagels with the underscore. I thought I sent it to you.
You did.
There's a couple Big Dave's Bagels because I had a meta issue for 8 months.
I got it right here.
And then there's Big Dave's Bagels on Facebook. Those are the 2 Facebook and Instagram is pretty much all I do.
So I got Big Dave's Bagels, one word, on social media or on Instagram.
That's not me.
That's not you?
That's the one I'm not using now.
Oh, okay. So
that was my original account that got
it.
suspended for 8 months, and I started another.
Why did you get suspended?
Oh, please. You don't. What I went through with Facebook and Meta and Instagram.
So wait, what's the other one?
It's Big and then underscore Dave's then underscore Bagels.
Got it. Awesome. We'll link to that in the show notes. And who do you respect and admire? So this is how I find my future guests. It's how I found you. It could be locally here, or it could be nationwide. Who is somebody that you think the industry needs to hear from? Who has a story? Who has wisdom? Who has knowledge that needs to be paid forward?
I recommend. I mean, the obvious would be to drop the big name chefs that I know, but
I'll take it.
I mean, I think Chef Duffy is as knowledgeable as anyone I've ever met. The cool thing about Brian is he doesn't really glue himself to any one business. He's opened and consulted in over 100 restaurants. So I've never been around anyone that has more. I've never been around anyone that has more information, especially financial, at his fingertips. Like, he knows eggs went up 0.05% that week, or sugar commodities here. And so he's somebody that I have awesome respect for.
Chef Brian Duffy.
Chef Brian Duffy,
Past guest on the show. I want to say he was one of my first 100 interviews.
Oh, he was already there.
Yeah, and I would love to get him back on the show because it's been some time. Where is he based right now?
He lives in Philly, but he's home about 20 nights a year. He's literally on the road all the time.
I got to reconnect with him.
Bobby Marcotte, obviously, he's somebody I respect tremendously. But, if you met Bobby and didn't talk to his partner, you missed half the story.
Yeah.
Paul is the guy behind the scenes at Tuckaway.
You hear that, Bobby? We need an introduction to Paul.
I think Paul's the fun interview there.
All right, I would love to get Paul on the show.
Paul's another guy that has an incredible handle on the financials of his company at all times. He allows Bobby to be that incredibly creative chef that he is. again, there's a partnership where it works, where they work for each other, they help each other.
All right, I'd love to get that story told, Paul. Look out, I'm coming after you. And this is where I say, my friend, you have something else to say?
In the last group, I would probably mention, if you're talking about, in town, is that group Valley Originals that does so much work with our local organizations up here.
Valley Originals. Paul.
And that's that's probably like a group of 15 different restaurants.
Paul, look out, Valley Originals, Paul, Brian Duffy, I'm coming after you, folks. I'd love to reconnect. And this is where I say, my friend, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Literally can't do what I do without people like you, getting open, getting vulnerable, being generous with your time and your knowledge.
It's been an up and down story, so I guess I gave you some of each. But
there is no questioning, my friend. You are unstoppable. Cheers.
Thank you.